election. And I believe in an early start if you're going to run for mayor, that you should learn what the issues are and what's involved in the city, running of the city. So I'd spent a year on it, more than a year, in fact, on a year and a half before. But the only difference is that I knew what I wanted to do and didn't have a party that would just pick me as a candidate and run me, which is the usual format. The party gets together and picks someone to run, and he doesn't really have to be knowledgeable or want to be mayor. I wanted to be mayor, so I worked at what I wanted to obtain in the future.
Who influenced you politically?
That may be a problem. I don't think anyone did. Maybe I should have had someone influence me politically. I had some good friends that I developed over the years in the Republican Party. Vinnie Polisco, Martha Terrell, Eric Wellman. There were many that played a part in my running and in the 2 years that I was mayor. But I don't think any of them influenced me. I have my own set of values, and I listened, but I think that none of them played a major role, and that I looked up to them and they made the decisions and I just did what they said. That's what you mean by influence. But who, if you're saying maybe who influenced me to get involved in Republicans and run, I think it was Vinnie Polisco, who I'd ran in 1975 as an independent for councilman in the 2nd Ward. I met Vinnie Polisco that year after the election. He suggested I enroll in the Republican Party, and if I wanted to run for some office, to meet with him, and that's how it went from there. But no one influenced my decisions. They were all my own, unfortunately, or fortunately.
I think the word independent is something that really applies to you. In many respects, you were your own person all the way through. You really wanted to be mayor. What did you hope for? What did you want to do that was so strong that you went to this extra effort?
Well, I saw a lot that was happening in Danbury that I didn't like, and I saw a lot that I would like to see happen that wasn't happening. And I thought that I could do the job of mayor, and I could do a good job administrating, at least in my own mind I thought I could. And I think I did, personally, beating my own drum. I think I did a job. I felt there were things that had to be done, that, such as the water department's $10 million bond issue, which went through in 1979, the year that I was defeated. Mayor Dyer, of course, gets credit for it because the building was done under him, but I put together I learned some things in office. I learned that you just can't go to the people and say, I want money to do this. It didn't work. We tried one bond issue, I forget the very early one, it didn't work, and I decided after that we had to educate the public and gain support for any project. We did it with the Morris Street, South Street School, $5 million bond referendum, then turned around and did it again with a $10 million bond referendum for the water department. So I saw things like that. Mayor Disabel at the time was having problems with the Morris Street, South Street School bond referendum. It had been dragging, and it did start under Mayor Disabel. I won't take credit for starting that. It started there. I happened to complete it and get the bond issue through, and Mayor Dyer again happened to benefit by the fact that the schools were improved under his administration. But it was really 3 mayors that worked on the Morris Street, South Street School renovations and the bond issue for him. But I saw things like that, and I thought that I could get those done, and that I could work within the city of Danbury and get some things done that I thought had to be done that had been neglected for many years.
What's unique about Danbury?
Well, there are a lot of things unique about Danbury. Geographically, it's only located about an hour from New York City, which is a major city. A lot goes on in New York City. A lot of people live in Danbury that work in New York City, Westchester County, Fairfield County, Connecticut. It was a one-industry town. When I was a young man, a young boy, the hatting industry was the only industry here. Everyone worked for the hat factories or worked in support of people that worked in them. They were carpenters and, of course, shop owners and so on, but everyone supported the hat industry, or hatters as they were called in those days. Now it's changed over. It's almost a high-tech city now. Most of the companies in here are either corporate headquarters or are high-tech technology companies such as Perkinelmer, Qualtron, Pitney Bowes, you name them. We have a conglomerate. We have world headquarters for Union Carbide also, and a few other headquarters for companies. I think it may be unique because of its geographical location, in that companies located here knowing that they could still use their employees that lived in the Westchester area, Fairfield County area, Connecticut, and it wouldn't be a different commute for them. So I think that there's a great manpower resource here available in the immediate Danbury area or near Danbury area for corporations. I think that's unique about Danbury, other than it has nice weather and beautiful countryside.
What was some of the major problems that you had to deal with there?
Well, I had one major one right away in 1978. I was elected in 1977, November 1978. Reevaluation took place in the city of Danbury, which takes place every 10 years, mandated by the state. Reevaluation, of course, is reevaluation of all real property and real estate. That causes a great deal of distress among the citizens, and that it's not understood by many citizens that reevaluation does not necessarily mean your taxes are going to go up. Everyone's. It may mean someone's home is going to be reevaluated for more money. It's going to cost them more in taxes because they've made additions during the 10 years since the last evaluation that weren't known to the city of Danbury. But normally it shouldn't bother the citizens, and that everyone's reevaluation will be equal. And that if the taxes go up, it will be because the city administration spends more money, not because of reevaluation. But that's a very hard thing to explain to 50,000 or 70,000 people. And that was an immediate problem I had. It was a long, dragged-out fight. A taxpayers group that supported me, the ETA, that supported me in 1977 during the election, got involved in the reevaluation, and of course that was my very first budget going through that year, in June of that year, of 78 also. And it became a very difficult year, 1978, and I lost the support of the taxpayers group because I wouldn't do what they say, and as we talked before, that I was independent in my thinking from anyone, and that I felt that there were certain things hadn't done in the city and I was going to do them because I felt that they were right to be done, and that I wasn't going to take the political pressure that do it, because if you don't do it, we won't support you next time, accept it.
How do you feel about the mall and its effect on downtown Danbury?
Well, the mall hasn't been built yet. They're still moving at this time, March of 1985, they're still moving land over there, and I believe it all started about 1979, so for 6 years and there's no mall yet. I think that if in fact the mall does get built there, which I'm beginning to believe it will now after 5 or 6 years, that maybe they are going to build a mall. I really didn't feel it was going to be a mall for many years, but now I'm getting more convinced it will be a mall. I think the effect downtown Danbury is not going to be good for the downtown merchants. I think that many people that shop downtown will shop at the mall rather than fight the crowded, congested downtown streets and access and egress to downtown. So I think that the overall effect's going to be bad for the downtown merchants. I don't think it's going to help them. I don't see many cities that have a history where a large mall has been built that the downtown has thrived alongside of a large major mall. There's no one downtown that can compete with a Fox or a large Sears store or a large J.C. Penney's. It's just hard it would be hard for the downtown merchants to compete with those major chain stores, plus the many other small shops that will be in that mall. Only time will tell. I may not be a prophet.
How has Danbury changed?
Well, if you're talking from the time that I was young, I was born in Danbury in 1935. The population of Danbury then was around 35,000. It's now, I think the last census put it over 60, near 70,000. So it's doubled in size in my 50 years. I can remember as a boy when I could walk down Main Street, and I say boy, teenager, 12, 13, 14, around that age, and knew almost everyone on Main Street, knew the families, knew what family they came from, etc. That's no longer true. There are a great many people that live in Danbury now that have only moved in the last decade, last 2 decades, last 20 years or 10 years. And I no longer recognize many people on Main Street when I walk down, or in the movies when I go in, or in the stores when I go in. I'm still recognized by many of them as a carryover from the 77 and 79 term, in that they recognize myself, even though I have more gray hair and beard's a little raggedier or whatever, but I'm still recognized, but I don't recognize them, and I think that's a big change in the city.
So it's becoming less personal?
Less personal, right. It's becoming a big city rather than a small town, as it was.
If you had to compare Danbury to other larger cities, in what direction would you say we were heading in, Bridgeport, Hartford, Stamford?
I don't think we're ever going to reach the size, much bigger than we are. I think land was, if I remember the studies that were done, we had about 85% usage of the land in the city of Danbury. The condominium building right now, of course, is that little land that was left is now being gobbled up by condominiums, which is making the population grow quite a bit bigger. But I don't ever see us being as big as a Bridgeport, for example, or a Stamford, New Haven, or Hartford. We're not going to, Danbury's not going to get that big just because of the geographical limitations on how many people we can put into this area. There's now some opposition starting to rise to condominium building, and I agree with it. There may be a saturation point on condominiums. We don't want to become a bedroom community either. We're lucky that we have as much industry as we do, good industry, and that fortunate that some previous mayors, Gino Arcani, I believe, Commerce Park came under his administration and got the first start in technology companies coming into Danbury. But I don't think that we're ever going to be big enough in those cities, and I would hope not. We're big enough where I'm still comfortable with it, and I think it's a comfortable city to live in as it is. I just don't think it's going to get any bigger. I don't think it's going to get any smaller either, though. I think we're just about peaked out.
How do you feel about state and federal mandated programs and its effect on the city?
Well, the only problem I ever had with the state mandated programs, we have a legislative body up there, and of course I have to give them credit for having a brain and thinking about what they're doing. And they make decisions and pass laws, and the only complaint I ever had about the mandated programs were, how do we fund these programs? It's very easy for a state legislator to sit up there, and it was, to sit up there and dream up all these nice programs, or be lobbied into a program that might be needed within the education system, the health department, or whatever. As long as they think about how are we going to fund this, I'm happy. And when I say how are we going to fund it, I'm putting myself in their position, because I think that if you mandate a program, you should be prepared to bring the funding with it for the city or town. During my administration, there were mandates that came up, and I can name a few. One was where you had to call New Haven on every time you dug a hole in the city of Danbury, and New Haven would tell you whether there were any pipes in the street or not. I forget the name of it now, it has a funny name, but anyhow, the city of Danbury was mandated to provide maps of all the pipes and sewer lines and electrical lines and everything in the city of Danbury for this company, which was getting in charge then those people that were digging the holes when they called in, and also would charge the city of Danbury if we called in. When I told them was it was call before you dig, I think was the name of the program. And what I said was, you provide us the money to make those maps. It's a great deal of work to provide all these maps. We have sewer lines, we don't even know where they are in the city of Danbury, they're in there so long, maps have been lost. To regenerate all this information then on a scale, if you know what a scale is, they wanted a particular scale to the drawings, and then grid it off. You give us the money to do it, we'll be happy to do it for you. But this program was mandated by the legislative body with no thought in mind as what the impact was going to be upon the city and how much cost it was going to be in their budget year. And another one was to try fiduciary treatment at the sewer plant. They mandated that. for us without any thought about what the impact was on a sewer plant that was only 10 or 15 years old at that time. And what we did, when these programs started coming up during my administration, I and some other executive officers of other cities got together and did get together with the legislative body, and they did pass a law down there that they require a rider on every bill going through saying what the impact would be to the cities in cost and how it was going to be funded, who was going to fund it, the state or the city, so that we knew if we wanted a bill was coming up down there that was going to mandate that we provide everyone with a Cadillac, for example, in the city of Danbury, they would have to tell us who's going to fund it. If the cities were going to have to fund it, then we'd go there and lobby against this bill and say, hey, we can't afford this bill. You're going to have to change it or not pass it. So we did, during my administration, and not I alone, but other chief executive officers of cities and towns did manage to get them to put that rider on the bills. But I have no problem though with any mandated laws. If they're law, we follow them, and all I ask is tell us how we fund it if it costs money.
What was a typical day like?
Typical day as a mayor of City of Danbury was a very hectic day. I recently was putting some stuff away, my old calendars and date books from the mayor's office. And my appointments usually ran from I used to go in the office at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I had office hours from 7 to 9 without appointment for anyone that was working, had a problem that they thought the mayor could take care of. And my office was open. I would be there and they could walk in. So from 7 to 9, I might have 2 or 3 walk-ins, or I might have a dozen, or I might have none. And I would do some of my paperwork during those 2 hours and have a cup of coffee. At 9 o'clock, my official appointments started, and they were usually every half hour. Sometimes someone would request an hour because it was a more lengthy problem, but they would run from 9 o'clock to 12, and then many times the one that was in at 12, I would have lunch with that person, or I would have a lunch date and return usually around 1 o'clock from lunch, and again go with appointments through the afternoon, which might carry until 5 or 5:30 in the evening. Once a month at least there was a council meeting at night which the mayor chairs. The rest of the evenings of the month were usually taken up by affairs of different organizations who wanted the mayor there for the dinner to grace the podium. And I would say 5 out of 7 nights during the week, my wife and I would be at a fair, and some nights we would be at 1 or 2 or 3 affairs. We would have hors d'oeuvres at one affair and dessert, or the main course at another fair, and dessert and coffee at the third affair. So life was very hectic. The 2 years went by very fast. What I'm trying to get at is that I enjoyed it because it was very active, and I'm an active person. And to me, the 2 years went by so fast that I wished I could put them back in slow motion, you know.
I think you'd have to be active to stay slim after all of those dinners.
Well, I got used to it. In fact, my wife said she didn't care if she never saw prime rib again after we got off. But it was very hectic, but I enjoyed it. I liked it. I'm that type of person. Some people it might bother, it didn't bother me. But it's a hectic 2 years.
What did you really love about the job, and what did you really hate about the job?
Well, I guess what I really liked about the job most was the times when I could really help someone. When someone would come in with a problem and I could solve the problem, I could get to the root of the problem and give them a solution, or tell them how it could be solved, and check back, or they would check back later and say, yes, the problem was solved. The thing I most disliked about the job was the politics of the job. People using whatever occurred to politically assassinate you. Once you're elected, you immediately start the other party and some of your own party immediately start this assassination process of your character and of your ability to do the job. As we see now with President Reagan, whether we like him or not, or personally, it doesn't matter. But from his moment he was elected 4 years or his first term 4 years ago, the assassination process starts. The political cartoons start. The nitpicking on everything that he does starts. And, that was the thing that I liked least. I didn't mind honest criticism or someone pointed out a mistake. I work as an engineer or designer. I make a lot of drawings, and I know I can make mistakes because I see the parts later on that don't go together, and I know that I've made a mistake in a dimension or something, but I can see it. I also could see my mistakes when I was in office, and I knew what I would do different the day after I'd done something wrong. As now I know what I did wrong during the 2 years that might have led to my not being reelected in '79, but whether I would go back and do them another way to be reelected is another question. But I learned by my mistakes, as most people do, I think. How do we get this far into this?
No, believe me, I understand. It's the same thing with being a
But
teacher.
that was the part I didn't like, though. I guess that was the question. What did I dislike the most was the nitpicking politics about holding that type of office where you immediately become the target of the other party and many in your own party. And anyone you also say no to. If you tell someone, no, I can't help you on this problem, it's not within the province of the mayor or the city to solve this problem, you immediately lose their friendship because they think that...
People expect magic from a mayor?
Yes, they do. That's one of the problems. My philosophy was that I would give you an answer yes or no right away. I was not one to put it on the desk and say, I'll get back to you. I know what politics is, and I know how to play politics if I wanted to. The political thing to do when you have to say no is to say, well, let me get back to you, let me look into this, and you stall and stall and stall and stall and stall. And I feel you still end up losing that person as a friend or a political ally. So I gave him an answer as soon as I could, be it yes or no. And hopefully I thought that if I gave you a no answer, you would maybe look at your problem in a different way and take a different approach to it then. At least you had an answer, no, I wasn't going to help you, but you'd better go someplace else. But,
Better than false hopes.
Yes.
Dragging things out.
But that's not good for politicians.
Bridget?
What were some of the most important decisions you had to make?
Most important decisions. I guess they're all important decisions there in office. An obvious one right when I was in office was, do I do what I have to do to be reelected in '79, or do I do what I think is right for the city and the citizens of Danbury? I knew that in '78 I could fold to the demands of the taxpayers group and cut the school budget more than reduce the education budget more than I did, which is another reduction of the education budget always sounds like you're taking money away from the school system. It's not. What's happening is that every year the budget for education goes up. What you're doing is just saying, I'm not going to let it go up $5 million, I'll let it go up $4 million this year, but everyone, it's always played as you're cutting the education budget, like you're taking away jobs or something, which you're not. But that very first year, for example, I knew that if I stood up in a long, prolonged fight with the ETA, sooner or later I was going to lose their support. There was no way that I don't get volatile after a while, and their members wouldn't. They wanted another $2 million, I think, taken out of the education budget that year, and I just wouldn't do it. And I was in the middle. I had people saying I've taken too much out already, and people saying take more out. So I knew I was in a bad spot, and I knew one decision I could make was go ahead and take $2 million more out, satisfy the ETA, and I don't lose half the people that had supported me, maybe. So that was a very important decision right there. Was I going to live to be, a political animal and run again in '79 and do things that were politically expedient, or was I going to do what I thought was right and sleep good at night? And I chose to do that. That was probably the most important decision I made when I first got in office in that first year. There are other important decisions, though. The Morris Street, South Street School, again, bond issue, the Waterworks bond issue. The decisions had to be made there on how to, whether they in fact needed to be done, should they be done, how do we go about getting the money, do we educate the people or just go blank for a referendum? They're all important. Every decision you make as a mayor is important. It affects every decision you make affects someone, even if it be one individual. And more than likely, most of your decisions are going to affect the whole population of the city of Danbury. You raise taxes, it affects just about everyone in the city. But they're all important decisions. You don't make many light decisions there, except what to eat for lunch or where to go.
If you put it, how would you advise a young person that wants to go into politics?
Well, I think if a young person wants to get involved in politics, a good way would be to start as young as you can, because there's a lot to learn in politics. I didn't start until late in life, relatively, in my 40s, although I worked for Goldwater back in the 30s, raising funds. But I think that you should get involved as early as you can. Most certainly get involved with a party. You're not going to go too far as an independent. Choose either party, whichever one. Make friends, number one. They're always good to have friends in your party if you decide to become a candidate later on. Work for a candidate. If you're not going to be a candidate yourself, choose a candidate that you think represents your views on whatever issues you choose to go with. But pick one that represents you, not the winner. Many people get involved in politics and they try and pick the winner and then go with him rather than go with what is right. If you choose to be a candidate rather than just be involved in helping a candidate, then I think whatever office you're running for, be it local or statewide or federal, that you spend some time studying the issues. If it's, for example, the mayor of the city of Danbury, you want to know what the boards and commissions do, what the Board of Education does, the budget process within the city of Danbury, what the budget is, what the current budget is, what's projected to be, what's the mill rate, what's the grand list, what's the projections for the grand list growing. Study these issues, and you must be able to articulate them, and you must have those numbers in the back of your head and they're stored away. You must know what you're talking about, at least I feel. Many politicians don't, but my prerequisite was that I know all I could about the city of Danbury before I got involved. But I think that those things will hold you in good stead throughout if you're going to be a candidate, your career or your campaign. You'll feel comfortable with them, and then stick to your own views. Don't be influenced too much by anyone else. Be yourself and do what's right, not what's politically expedient. You'll sleep good at night, and no one will be ever knocking on your door saying, "I'm the FBI," and you took a bribe from or a graft from someone, or did something that was illegal. And the only one you want to take counsel from is a counselor, by the way, a lawyer, and whether what you're doing is in fact illegal. If you do become a mayor or a selectman or a councilman or whatever, check with a lawyer before you take actions. And in many cases, it'll solve you embarrassing moments later on. And even that doesn't help you. I during my career, took some counsel, and it turned out to be a wrong decision, as it turned out later on when we went before a court. But at least I felt comfortable with what I'd done, because I'd asked someone. But I think get involved young, and be yourself, and do what is right, not what's politically expedient. And I think if you want to be involved in politics, you go a long way.
Bridget, you sign off?
This is Bridget Nesby signing off from down about his
Against the civilians, that they were very serious if they were pushed into the corner.
When they
practice, they've been doing it for years, but you don't really hear about it just before the Olympics. They did a little bit.
How do you feel about being the mayor of Danbury in this tricentennial year?
Well, it's probably about the most exciting time to be mayor. And for a lot of reasons. There's so much happening in the community, a lot of growth, a lot of new projects we've launched into, such as the restoration of the building you're in. And I think to be here for the culmination of 300 years of progress has been an exciting time. The enthusiasm that's being generated throughout the community because of it, and so many activities going on. It makes for busy days, that's for sure, but I think it's been an exciting time. More. Must have more.
Go ahead, Bridget.
What are some of the most important decisions you have to deal with since you've become mayor?
Well, we've done an awful lot because I took over a community that is facing rapid growth and so many problems as I interpreted them. Many of those dealt with fixing our roads, providing adequate funding for education, and at the same time fixing the school buildings, bringing them up to code compliance. I think the other tough area was the reorganization of city government, which is still ongoing, but I made many changes to how the government was structured, and I think that was important too. I guess trying to bring the city up to the 1980s, I felt that it kind of dragged a bit. Not blaming anyone, because I think the attitude was very different when we were a smaller city, and we didn't have to do some of the things we now need to do. And it's a little different situation now with the kind of growth and population that we've had.
You think Danbury?
Go ahead.
You think Danbury will turn into another New York or Bridgeport?
Oh, no, not at all. No, the planning we're doing and the kind of zoning we're beginning to propose will give us the growth management tools to assure that that doesn't happen. And you're looking at a 44 square mile area, you're looking at half-acre, 1-acre zoning. Lots of people want to preserve their homes. We have a height limitation of 10 stories on any building. I don't think that we'll change that, at least for the foreseeable future, so it means you won't get those towering structures. I think that we want to preserve the mid-sized city character of Danbury, and I think that that can be. We're doing a lot of restoration in the downtown area right now that's compatible with that, the Ives Street restoration, all the buildings you see being fixed. That's because we want to preserve our scale, preserve our friendly image, I hope, and we're an image of where people can really still know each other, not to be overwhelmed by buildings and growth.
How about the new mall when that comes in? You don't think that'll attract? I mean, it'll attract people, but...
Well, that's demanded by the people. People want more shopping. Everywhere I go, people are saying they want better retail than currently exists. But it's going to be a regional shopping mall, but that doesn't make us like New York City. It means we're going to have better shopping available to us. That also will contribute about $2 million a year in tax revenue to the city of Danbury. And 4,000 jobs, too.
I see that you're doing some work over on 7 South over there to accommodate the new cars coming in. Is that going to have any major effect, like on the downtown?
Lane highway all the way between Danbury and Norwalk, and we need that. That's a major commitment from the state of Connecticut, that $30 million interchange.
Now, how is it going to affect the downtown merchants?
The mall? Well, it will affect them. Some of them just won't survive. And some of them do not change what they've done in many, many years. But the downtown will be something very different. There is a redevelopment proposal that may go through eventually that'll see offices in the downtown, light retail, support retail. You're going to have a new restaurant district in the downtown that's going to be the Post Office Street and the Ives Street area. The downtown can survive, but it's got to do things differently. It won't be the retail hub of the region. The mall will be that.
That brings up the redevelopment down over here. What made you decide on the contracting the people from Waterbury?
Well, number one, I didn't make the decision. I didn't make the decision. The redevelopment agency made the decision. And it's not a question of hometown developer versus out-of-town developer. It's a question of who can do the job better and who has the money to do the job. The Arricchetti Associates has the capacity to do the project and has done large projects. The Nolans have received major support from this office on every project that they've done. But they've been mid-sized projects, and they've been subsidized projects with government money. The other item that was a concern to me between Arricchetti and Nolan is that the Nolan project would have required major money into the millions of dollars from the city and our taxpayers, and that would have meant a tax hike, where the Arricchetti proposal requires no municipal funding, no city taxpayer money. So I think those are significant differences. And you can get into all the other details as we're seeing being fought out in the media and everywhere else. But the main issue that I have to be concerned with as a mayor is what our taxpayers are going to have to pay. And I don't see anyone knocking down my door right now saying they want a tax hike next year to pay for a developer. I don't see that at all. As it is, they're going to probably get a tax hike because of what we want to do with the schools. We just passed a $6.6 million bond referendum. Bonding costs money. It's like buying a car. It's an installment plan. And it means we have to have revenue to support the payments. Just as when you go buy a car, you need revenue. Jobs, maybe two.
No? Oh,
When you were first elected, you were young and single. That's changing. How does this affect your
I'm
relationship?
getting old and married.
How does this affect your relationship with political people in Danbury?
I don't know if it has any effect, really. I don't know, the issues when I first ran is I was too young. I was single, so obviously they felt I didn't know anything about life, and I didn't own a house. Now the issues are I'm getting married, I'm getting too old, and I do own a house. I don't know if those issues mean anything when it comes to political decisions or even decisions by voters. I think that my personal life is just that, my personal life. It really isn't anyone's business. And either I'm doing a good job as mayor in addressing the needs of the city or I'm not, and that's all I should be evaluated on.
Steve?
What do you see for the future of Danbury?
Lots. I think it's going to change dramatically. I think as we serve as the 8th largest city in the state, you'll see more attention being focused once the development of the mall occurs. We're doing some of the preliminary work now. A lot of people will come to Danbury as the regional provider of goods and services. The university here will continue to expand. I think the downtown will become exceedingly attractive because of all the restoration going on and the nightlife that'll probably occur because of the restaurant district and the job opportunities that'll also be there. I think that you'll see Danbury within the next 5 years look even better than it looks now. We're doing a major park restoration program that we're going to announce next year. We're doing a lot of realignment of all the intersections. As you saw, Locust and Wildman Street, which has been straightened out. We're going to do Franklin to Osborne Street next, tearing down all those streets in the middle. So from the lumberyard through, so you'll come off Franklin Street and go straight through to Osborne Street, no more of the zigzagging. We're going to put 4 lanes at Haystown Avenue to alleviate the traffic there. We're working to get an on-ramp onto the highway at North Street to alleviate a lot of the traffic at North and Main Streets. So I think there are a lot of changes that will occur, and a lot of them will be physical changes. There'll be changes that will make the city look better, and I think there'll be also internal changes with the government structure that'll continue, or someone will continue, I think, because we've set the pace, they won't be able to undo it, and that there'll be more people to serve the demands of the city. I think they're all good things that are going to be happening.
Yeah, so you mean there's not going to be no more Franklin extensions right after Franklin? It's just going to go straight
That's right.
to Osborne?
Straight through. The voters approved that.
Yeah, because when I go to school, I got to go through that every day, and you just get stuck.
You do.
Yeah,
And you
every
won't,
day.
hopefully. Although I can tell you that, as is the case with anything, when I try to correct a situation, especially a traffic situation, you create more traffic while you're doing the construction. There was a lot of problems with Locust and Wildman Street for a while, but now that it's finished, everyone liked it.
Yeah.
But I think it's the old adage of you can't make omelets without breaking eggs. Boy, I've been breaking a lot of eggs. I can tell you that.
Diane, did you ask?
What property in Danbury did you devote most of your time to?
Well, I think I don't know, I devote an awful lot of time to a lot of problems. I think that perhaps the item that gets the most is our capital spending and our development of physical facilities for the city, such as the roads and the improvements to buildings and parks and recreation. Most of all, that's a budget item. I mean, mostly everything comes down to the budget anyway. But I think that's really what I spend a lot of time on. I spend a lot of time on everything. I'm out almost every night. I'm out every weekend. This morning I had an 8 o'clock meeting with the Ethan Allen Inn, and I mean, you're running all the time. So there's a lot of time being spent on a lot of things as I'm trying to be in a lot of places all at once, and I think we've been able to do a lot by that kind of visibility and at the same time the involvement of our citizens in the solution of many of the problems that face the city.
Dennis?
What's a typical day like for you?
Well, you'll start usually at 8. I'm in the office usually by 8 o'clock, seldom later, and I'll get some paperwork done. The phones will start ringing. There's people that meet with me. Yesterday I interviewed 8 people who want to be special police officers. I interviewed someone who wants to be the new tax collector. There's interviews like that. There's meetings on projects like the redevelopment project or projects that are going to be coming before the Common Council that I have to involve myself with because I set the agenda. I don't usually take lunch, once in a while, but not too often. Then I'll run right through to dinner time. Occasionally, if I can, I like to spend dinner time at home, or I have to go to a dinner. Most weekends, on this Saturday night, there are 3 dinners that I have to go to. Last Saturday night, there were 4. I don't eat at all those dinners. I usually do an in and out, but the days are usually 12 or 14 hours long. And there's also the interviews I give with the media. Usually 2 radio interviews by 7 in the morning on the telephone. Because that's when you'll hear me usually by 8 o'clock. You'll hear me at the 8 o'clock news if you listen to it. Those have been done at 7, or sometimes a reporter may decide to call you at 6:30 in the morning, which I am up by then, but I'm not exactly geared to giving great interviews. So when you hear me dragging and slow and deeper voice than usual, that's because they grabbed me real early that morning. But and people are constantly after you. They're constantly telling you ideas. They're constantly asking things. Then you've got to help constituents that have individual problems as well. And that's why I have a good staff also to help me doing all this. One person can't do it alone. It takes a lot of people.
You had a question related to that. Whose was that? About delegating authority?
You have to delegate.
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve. You want to read that one?
Yeah. How much authority do you delegate to others?
Well, I don't know if you so much delegate the authority, but you certainly delegate the jobs and tasks and get the research done. I have a cabinet we've restructured, so I have a cabinet of all my main department people, the fire, police, public works, my administrative assistant, the Common Council president, the health director, the housing director. All these people meet with me every other week, and even more frequently if need be. And I will delegate as far as specific projects, but they have to report back to me. So ultimately, I'm still making the final decisions. No one can make a decision for a mayor, and that's by the city charter. There can only be one mayor.
Yeah.
So I have to go on the basis of the information provided to me, the research we do. But a lot of times, it may just be a pothole that I can call Dan Garmel, our public works director, and say, we can take care of this, and it's done. I mean, that's a delegation, too. It depends on what kind of project it is. But I usually I still make all the final decisions.
Why have you been so supportive to the Alternative Center? Why?
I think it's a good program. I think a good program deserves support. I've liked the program. I think it's been a very successful program. I think that there are young people who don't necessarily want to go through a routine learning experience in the high school setting. I've said on various occasions if the Alternative Center had existed when I was in high school, I probably would have been there. I was not very happy through high school, and if it wasn't just for a few good teachers that spent some time with me, I might have just cashed in the chips and said the hell with it, and gone on to who knows what, probably not being mayor. But a few people did see some, I guess, talent, and they decided that they'd nurture it a little bit and kick me around a little bit and make sure I got got on the right track. I was no great student in the high school, I can tell you that, academically. I was a Dean's List student in college, though.
Yes?
Have you ever thought about going on to any higher jobs, like maybe being a governor?
Well, everyone always asks me that. Everyone's always got me running for something else. I don't even know if I'm going to run for re-election right now. I just don't know that. As you know, some things are changing in my life, and I'm going to be getting married, and I just don't know what I'm going to do yet, even for this office. I don't know if I'd run for other office. It's nice to hear it said once in a while, and it's flattering, but whether or not those things would develop for me or not, I really don't know. The office of governor is attractive, but I don't think you just start out being governor. I think you work to it or you build to it. Everyone's got me running for congressman now. That's the thing I hear the most because Bill Ratchford lost. I really have absolutely no interest in being a congressman here. And that'd be putting me back on the legislative side of government. I was in the legislative side of government when I served 2 terms in the State House. I actually like the administrative side of government better, the executive branch. So I think if I'm going to make another move, it would be to the executive side as opposed to the legislative branch. So that's why I don't think I'd ever run for Congress.
How does your future wife feel about you being mayor?
Well, she's enjoyed it. She's liked it. And of course, we've gone out for a long time, so she's very familiar with the demands. And I guess, I don't know if things will change too much in that area. At least I hope not. I guess what would really change if we decided to have children. That would change. I don't know if I'd do that.
Okay.
This job then.
Ray's got one on that one.
If you have children, how would you feel about them being raised in Danbury?
Well, if I stayed in Danbury, I'd certainly want them raised in Danbury. I think Danbury would be a good place to have them raised. I think there's a lot of good things to do in Danbury. A lot of it's what you make it. I know a lot of times young people will say, well, there's nothing to do. Well, there's a lot to do if you look out and find out what there is to do. And you have to take some initiative. But I think this will be a good place to have them raised. I think the parks will be good, the fields will be good, the schools are good. Programs like this are outstanding. I would have them in public schools too. I would not put them in private schools.
Why would you think that would bring in more money, the new mall or the fair?
Well, the new mall will absolutely bring in more money. No doubt about it. It's going to bring $2 million in tax revenue to the city that we don't have and that we never had with the fair. And it's going to bring 4,000 full and part-time jobs for the city. I think we all missed seeing the fair, but once the owners decided to sell the fair, I think that took care of that. It's $25 million they got paid. I guess if I owned it and was offered $25 million, I might. I guess that's the offer you can't refuse to hear about. But I think we feel bad about it. But it also had changed. The fair had also changed in the last few years. It had become very commercialized, and I don't know. We miss it. I always miss it in the fall because that's when we used to go to it and you smell the sausage and all that.
Joe Pepin's sausage.
Yeah, well, Joe Pepin's sausage, that's true.
Well, why didn't the city of Danbury purchase the fair?
Well, you don't just pull $25 million out of the hat. We don't have that laying around. The entire city budget's only $62 million. And I don't really think people would want to pay the kind of tax hike that would have required. I can't say, I'm not like the federal government. I can't sit around and print money when we need it. I have to actually have it. And the only place the city really gets its